Kemmunion. Kemmunion.
Okay, my right.
Greetings, y'all. Dua for joining us, newbie.
There was a sentence that came across.
Somebody wrote Kemmunion.
No, it was a longer one.
Oh, it was a notification about comments or something. We're just giving it a couple minutes before we get started.
People even showing up for class. They might cancel out.
We got a couple folks who have not yet started their celebrations for the day who are joining us. Dua for making time, setting time aside for this dialogue before you get into what else you got planned for the afternoon.
Mm-hmm. You can play one of the other tracks till they get in.
Okay.
I don't like Dead Space.
Which one? Anyone in particular? Or one of the finished ones?
Nah.
One of the new ones.
The old ones.
That's what I was asking. Okay.
Uju hindi nasti heki yes om reha
Okay,
meten
my eye, Jason.
ekawi ekawi uju hindi nasti heki yes om reha meten that's speaking English ekawi uju hindi nasti heki yes om reha meten Ekawi, Uju, Hindi, Nesli, Happy, yes, Om, Reham, Ekawi. I feel like I ain't listened to this in forever. Got talent.
It feels like it's new. Greetings, Tanya.
I'm just waiting for everybody to show up before we get into stuff.
Ankema Waret.
Quarantine by Mary. All right, don't get my eye, everybody. So we just starting off vibing, informal. Listen to one of the classics. It's been about 3 years since the lockdown or quarantine. It was a form of a lockdown since the quarantine. And at the beginning of that quarantine, I shared with you all my reintroduction back into music and production and stuff. And I introduced a new ambiance. And this very platform, this couch is where we first started introducing songs. And then I think it was several months later, we came with the new Radiance and started introducing songs from there, like giving y'all the first listen to things. So now here we are on the cusp of the spring going into the summer, and I'm going to be releasing some more. So I feel like it's only appropriate to give y'all a sample of the new album called A New Renaissance, Volume 1, Sound Current. So, let me know if y'all alive out there, if y'all want to hear it, because y'all coming in just in the shadows over there. So y'all ready for it? I know it's a delay, right?
It's a little delay. Yeah. You want them to let you know in the comments, right?
Yeah, thumbs up or something. You're like, we good. It's Mother's Day.
Gotta give them instructions. Wesley said, "Let us hear." Jason says, "Yes." Haru Asar Ong says, "Too."
I do. Because what's happening in the past few weeks, people have been reaching out to me saying that they're excited to hear new stuff and things like, especially the temple people, and that means a lot. Like when you're in your craft and things like that, sometimes as artists you wonder, like, what's it all for? Like, is this really about my self-expression? Will people appreciate it and things like that? But since A New Ambiance and A New Radiance, those grew to be people's favorites. It was part of our journey. It was part of our soundtrack through the crisis of the quarantine. So it has emotional import that's been projected onto it. So now we're at a different space. The energy is a little bit lighter. So that's what Renaissance means. It means it means a rebirth. It means to restore. So the vibe of A New Renaissance is like a nice sunny day. So we're gonna share one of the tracks from it. So I'm on my Quincy Jones thing. Call me Kim C. Jones, Comedic Jones. Like it's just a metaphor. So don't be attributing Quincy Jones other than shenanigans with me. Like, oh, Masud said he's Quincy Jones. Quincy Jones did such and such. Forget all that other stuff. I'm just playing with the Kim C. Jones. So I produced it, and it's featuring our very own him at Netret. So let's go.
Back to me, right?
Back to me. From my meditation, I've come to the realization about the powers of manifestation, about the powers and the results of my thoughts, and how thoughts become things, and how what's hidden becomes seen. The union of my thought and my feeling, and how when I think feelingly, I then observe my life and witness how they echo. And it allows me to feel empowered, knowing that somehow it all leads back to me. Now let us meditate.
It's a vibe. I like it. Go on, that's it.
It leads all back to me. 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 Let's meditate. Now let's meditate. There it is. That's one of my favorite ones from the project. So we're thinking about having an album release, album listening party sometime next month. So let us know if y'all interested in something like that. It'll give us a reason to meet and fulfill our fellowship requirements in our transition period and stuff like that. So, I'm looking sometime by the end of June. And right now, I got enough music. I could do the whole event just from my music and my unreleased things, unreleased projects that I'm trying to come out throughout the course. I got like a year's worth of stuff coming out in the new Renaissance. Volume 1 is the first. Remember, it's a Volume 2 coming also. So just let us know if y'all interested in coming out for something like that. But,
Too. All right, before you get into the next part of your message for today, let's properly open the way with our Sunday prayer, and then we'll go dive into the roll call. So why don't you all join me by saying, Amatu Panatir, Sawek Tuamentin Panatir, Audu Auma, Kedi Paharu. The translation, give yourself to Netter daily, keep yourself for Netter daily, and do it tomorrow as you do it today. We give homage to the Creator, who is like our Father and who is like our Mother, who is everything that we can perceive and everything that we cannot perceive, who is everything and yet is no one thing, who comes to us in the form of the Netru Ra, who is the light of the heavens, the light of the inner planes as well as the light of our lives, who shines the light for us on the path of Ma'ati, which is the path of truth, justice, righteousness, and harmonious balance, who comes forth as the light of vitality, giving us the strength and the endurance to live and act upon that which we know to be true. Homage to you, the one who shines in and through us as a beacon of light for those who are blind to the facts of their place, their position, and their responsibility in the divine scheme of things. May we be ma'akaru, true of thought, word, and deed to our highest reality. And in the moments of crisis, in the dark nights of the soul, when it appears that everyone and everything has let us down, so it is and so shall it be. Everyone join me in saying, Amen Ma'at, Ma'akiru.
Amen Ma'at, Ma'akiru.
Du'anater. All right, y'all. It's time for the roll call. I see a bunch of people on YouTube. I see some people on Facebook. Where y'all joining us from? We always like to know and see how big, how expansive, how broad this community is. We are all in tune and in vibe with one another. Distance is nothing in the age of the internet. So, Doaneta for sharing where you're joining us from. As y'all know, we are based right outside of Newark, New Jersey. So, that's where we at today. But I do want to know where y'all are at. So, let us know. Around the corner, Wabakusa, Colorado, in the building.
New Jersey. A New Jersey.
Yes, Lincoln, Nebraska, as always. Our brother Jason is here. Good to see you. Carteret, New Jersey. That's what's up.
Okay.
Nice. Edmond, Oklahoma is in the house. Do I nutter? I love that.
It's a good reminder to let us know like melanated people are like all over the planet. So when I see Nebraska, I'll be like, oh, they got black folks. That's cool.
Yes, not just black folks, but conscious black folks, comedic black folks too.
Exactly.
Do I nutter? Belleville, New Jersey is in the house as well. Give thanks.
Got the New Jersey crew.
I know the New Jersey delegation showing up.
Local today.
New Haven, Connecticut is here too. Anke my aunt Marie. And Lorraine, Ohio is in the house. Do I nutter? Yes. All right. Ready for me to turn it over to you?
Okay.
Okay.
All right. The Great Falcon is back for now. What's that?
He said there's more Africans in Nebraska than African Americans.
Okay. All right. So, we're back for a brief message. We're going to be out your way so you can go celebrate your Mother's Day, and big up to the mothers, all of the mothers, the organic avatars of the divine feminine, and may the abundance of the divine feminine fulfill your life where you experience lack no more. So big up to the melanated black women especially.
Do I nutter?
All lives are equal, but we bigging up the black women today.
Do I nutter? Yes.
So it's a beautiful spiritual community that we've developed. And I feel like over the course of the past 20 to 30 years, we become experts at setting up sacred space, not just online, but actually in person, where we give people the opportunity and the availability or the opportunity to at least temporarily expose themselves to the divine energy, and then being in a healing environment where it nurtures and supports us becoming who it is that we're meant to become. And it's also good to know that when things happen with me personally, I could sometimes step away and things not just fall apart, because this is not a messianic movement. It's not a personality cult. So I want to just speak briefly about the importance of leadership and management. And I know a lot of times in our conscious community, there's always this like shade thrown towards the idea of leadership and management. And it's just weird, like all out of all of the stuff that we claim as Africans, we don't claim the institution that creates leadership. The African legacy is responsible for institutions that's responsible for bringing forth strong leadership. And I'll even argue to say it's better to have weak or poor leadership than no leadership at all. So sometimes we have a lot of individuals in our community that's meant to be strong leaders, but our people keep them stuck in management mode. And some people are almost adept at creating false crises and sense of urgency just to get powerful people to just keep responding to small stuff, all because a lot of people they don't have confidence in their own ability to apply what they've been trained to apply. So now management is about holding code and keeping order until the next level is revealed. Then there's the leaders. The leadership is more like supposed to be like visionary, not this tyrannical thing that people think leaders are. Leaders are supposed to be visionary. So the leaders are supposed to be obedient to divine law, and they're waiting for a charge from spirit. So therefore, leadership and visionaries is like a yin and yang with management. So management without a visionary leader just eventually begins to implode upon itself, because it needs to be sparked. There needs to be a spark. There needs to be a goal or a direction. So they're holding sacred space till the goal or direction makes itself clear or gets clarified. And what's interesting is the visionary is doing the same thing. He has the whole space till receives a message from spirit. So management without vision is stagnant. A visionary without management of the vision is just a dreamer. And we've seen a lot of that. We've seen a lot of good orators and articulators in our community, but they get stuck in just the talking realm because there's no management or grounding of the vision in any practical way. So with that being said, Himmet, I want to give you props for holding it down the past 2 or 3 communions. You've been doing your thing. You've been showing that you're properly qualified to be the Himmet net to that, and that you're not just someone who parrots what it is that I teach. You know, and the sit this and the sit this. You have your own thoughts, and you figure out the alchemy of how to honor your own thoughts and feelings and align it with what it is that our ancestors believe. Because have, a lot of people are not skilled at doing that. A lot of people go with their own thoughts and their own feelings, and the contrast and the contradiction is just a lot of times far removed from what it is that our ancestors done. So there's a skill to learning how to align our thoughts and our feelings with the legacy of our ancestors. So you all should know, like in our tradition, how we practice it at the Temple of Anu, we generally give people a 72-day grieving process when someone's transitioned. It hasn't quite been 72 days for myself, so I just wanted to come out today and give a brief message and show face to let you all know that I'm doing well. And because a lot of people have been checking up on me, big up to the first family, which is the Temple of Anu, of course. But I want to also give an honorable shout out to the Shrine of Ma'at. That's family. Like when I look at the comment section, they up in here just like the Temple of Anu. Like there's almost like no difference in the membership in the Temple of Anu and Shrine of Ma'at. They up in the house, especially I'll say big up to the Shrine of Ma'at as a shrine in general, but especially that last class of initiates that I don't think we got to meet them. But that last class of initiates, they've shown themselves very present in supporting the Temple of Anu. And I'm just, just want to give a verbal mention to you all to let you all know that I do see you and I do recognize you. Now, to my knowledge, with our analytics, there's approximately between 150 to 200 people that listen to Communion. Even though they're not here in live time, there's a significant amount of people that do listen to it in their own time. And I want to give shout out to some of those people too, because some of those people have reached out to me personally too. I call them the solitary practitioners because they're not members of the Temple of Anu or Shrine of Ma'at that I know of, but clearly they're supporters of us. So I appreciate you all too and the well wishes of you all. So I want to show and demonstrate to you all that I'm not devastated. Death doesn't devastate me. I'm a spiritual warrior. If anything that devastates me more than death would be abandonment and betrayal. Death is inevitable, but abandonment and betrayal, you got to allow yourself to be vulnerable with people that you perceive to be close to you. So that always hurts and devastates a lot more than the idea of death. And I think with the issue with death, matter of fact, the middle netta lesson, the word for death is met. And then you reverse it as tim, it means completion. So the completion of this life is so-called death. Death is an opening to another way of life, another state of being. So I think the issue about death is really not the issue with death, is the shenanigans around death. A lot of us are more concerned with the circumstances of death. We're uncomfortable whether if a person is sick or ill when they're transitioning, because intuitively we all hate suffering. We don't. I don't think most people are scared to die. They don't want to die suffering. And then after death, the family shenanigans where we giving family a side eye about how they handling the affairs of the deceased in the transition. I think that's the great tension with death. But as a warrior, I don't fear death. Um, I live for what I die for. So what you die for is what you're supposed to live for. It's supposed to be one and the same. As spiritual warriors, you're supposed to be looking for a worthy cause to die for. We're just not here just to be talking and getting information and stuff. What would you die for? The thing that you die for is the thing you should be living for. And if you're not living for a thing that you're willing to die for, what is it that you're doing? You're actually wasting a lot of time and wasting a lot of energy We have to live with purpose. And I feel like I've demonstrated what I would die for and what I live for throughout the pandemic. Y'all saw me double down on natural health. Like that's what I'm into. I'm into the herbs, the fasting, the cleansing, the tonics, the elixirs and stuff. And y'all saw me stand on that strong, even against which I thought was, more educated people out there. I was willing to die for what it was that I believed. Through all the threats of livelihood and everything like that, I stood on it and I was ready to die. My thing is the plant's been here since the beginning of the time, and those certain people know how to use it. Some people know how to use the plant intelligence. This is not just about taking a supplement. It's about alchemy. It's about the alchemy of the body chemistry, the pH, and can't forget mind over matter. Minding your mind, making up your mind, and then creating a supportive condition in the body to support the charge of your mind. And I won't let y'all forget, like that is the charge of a spiritualist or initiates. That's supposed to be our everyday reality. So I stood on that, and we're still here to prove that we was correct about that. And once again, I'm glad everybody else who made other decisions, I'm glad they made it also. I'm glad that we're all still here. That thing hasn't appeared to devastate our community or impact the conscious or the comedic conscious community, because whether you took the shot or not, we all still are primarily health conscious. So we all had to do what it is that we had to do. I'm just showing you that I'm demonstrating what I live for and what I die for. The second time, even like, because if you all remember, I was recovering from kidney failure, coming right out of the right before the pandemic, right out of that, right after that, the pandemic hit. So that was one situation. Once again, I stood on what it was that I believe, which is natural health, prayer, and meditation, holding frame, mind over matter. Do y'all know, like when I was in the hospital, I had to get dialysis 3 times a week for 4 hours at a time. For those who don't know what dialysis is, it's a process of how they got to remove all your blood from your body, cleanse it, and put it back in your body. I had to do that 3 times a week for 4 hours at a time. And even when I got released through an outpatient program, it was 3 times a week, but for 3 hours at a time. And do y'all know, when I was in there, they told me, they just said, dialysis can't be forever. They said eventually the kidneys are gonna still fail, and that you will need a kidney transplant. That rocked me. I was like, whoa. And do y'all know that the transplant list is a 7-year list, a 7-year waiting list? And I'm just like, okay, so how long would it take my kidney to eventually fail? And then I got to sign up for a list, so it might be 10 years by the time I would need a kidney. I was like, nah, that's unacceptable. So I doubled down on the natural health. I contacted a naturopathic doctor named Jamal Hill, which is Lauren Hill's father. So he knows 3 times as much about the health thing than I did. I needed an objective opinion or objective approach on how to approach it. And then secondly, it was my own prayers and my own holding frame, as well as the prayers in holding frame of the temple of Anu. So the prayers holding frame of myself, as well as the collective of my spiritual community, along with naturopathic principles, got me through it. No dialysis is nothing. So once again, 2 examples. I was willing to die for what I live for, or what I live by every day. Once again, I hope you all could appreciate examples like this. So I'm not up here asking or telling you all to do anything that I haven't done or demonstrated. I'm just demonstrating that death doesn't scare me like that. I stand on my truth. And I feel like I dealt with death back at a young age, at maybe 2nd grade, when I became aware or conscious of what death was, when I had a conversation with my father. I know a lot of people are always enamored with their mother. I was blessed or blissed to have both of my parents, raised with both of my parents. I was enamored with my father. My father at the time was a mechanic for Cadillac. So he always kept the newest model of Cadillac. And I remember always running outside when he would come home and pull up in the driveway, because I was always excited to see my father. But there was a song out around the time. It was called Daddy's Home. It was like a doo-wop song. I don't know who sung the song. And the chorus is saying, Daddy's home, daddy's home to stay. And I just, one day I just woke up and I just asked my father, I said, will you always come home? And he said, no. One day I'm going to die. And I was like, what's death? And then, he explained it and I was devastated. And every time that song came on the radio, I would bawl out inconsolably. And was interested on here I am, I'm at 52 years old. I haven't heard the song again since back then. So I lost my father back in 2009, and now I lost my mother. I have no grandparents on either side, but I'm okay. So in our 72-day period, even though I said I'm okay, I still have to give myself space to know if I'm actually okay. Didn't that happen to you when your god sister died and stuff? So you be thinking you're okay sometimes, and then you realize you wasn't okay a few weeks. So sometimes you just need to have the space to really figure it out, because part of you dealt with it in one of your lectures also, that we've bought into this workhorse culture of the Western Hemisphere. Us as descendants of slaves and stuff, we get into this game face. Oh, I ain't hurt. I ain't got time to grieve or whatever. And that's the biggest dishonor we could do to ourselves, because that's repression. And repression always rears its head again as pathology and as disease. You don't just get sick for no reason at all. All disease is tied to some type of emotion, and it's usually some type of emotion that we feel like we don't have time enough to deal with or address. So in that 72-day period, even though you could be fine, you could be spiritual, you could be philosophically sound, I got it, but I still needed to give myself space to really see. And I do believe that I am fine, because like I just explained to you, I dealt with the concept of death back in the second grade. But however, I do know that since my mother released her energy from this plane, there was a release of energy there was a release of stuck energy within me. So as you all know, I do music production. I had a lot of this music. It was already done like 2 years ago, but the music was done, but the songs weren't developed. I was stuck with the songs, and within 2 weeks after my mother transitioned and released her energy from this plane, I completed 3 albums, songs and all. Like I did a whole new album in 2 weeks, in the 2 weeks time after my mother transitioned. So I used that energy and focused it into not just grieving, focused it into life. Remember, death or met is a transition from this state of life to the next life. And there's always a doorway, it's always going back. So when life is leaving this plane, going into a greater life, other life forces coming from the other planes into this life. So I believe that there was exchange going on there. So with that material, it's not about I didn't make an album about my mother's death or transition. It was about full, unedited, authentic expression of self. And I think that's what we're all, as spiritual beings having a human experience, we're looking for: unedited, authentic expression of ourselves. So what was my takeaway? My takeaway was to live more transparently through the heart. The shamans call it living with heart. It's about living from the heart with clarity, so I could show up authentically in all the things that I do. So it's telling me not to do anything that I won't show up authentically for. So what does that mean? That means sometimes when fellowshipping with people, a lot of people have a lot of ideas that they think a person like me should act on. And so a lot of it is good ideas, but the truth of the matter is I'm a leader slash visionary. I need to always wait for spirit to give me the charge to move on something so I can authentically show up. Because if I'm a leader and I'm not authentically showing up for it, then I'm being inauthentic to you all, and that's not good. So we teach this concept of the right thing done at the right time is ma'at, but the right thing done at the wrong time is isfet. So what they say, the pathway to hell is paved on good intentions or paved with good intentions. So I don't want to feed into that paradigm of thinking. So I'm just saying, I thank you all in advance for respecting my creative process. Now we could get into today's lesson. So real quick, since y'all at your keyboards, what was one of the last things you remember me teaching? Because I would, if you remember, I was changing the trajectory as far as our direction on content that we're going. What was one of the standout lessons that you remember me speaking? Because it was a solid 3 communions that I gave about a direction that I'm going. So if you're true students, you got your notes and you be like, oh, you spoke about such and such.
This is the test. This is the pop quiz.
They all at IHOP with their mothers right now, kind of half listening to me, you know.
They just have it on in the background.
All right. Guess not. They're doing the passive learning thing. It's cool.
Or they couldn't get to their notes fast enough. That's all right.
It's cool. So remember the saying, listen to your spirit, follow your heart, and do that which satisfies your ka.
Mm-hmm.
So I was talking about change of narratives and how some narratives in our community no longer serve us, and how some narratives aren't even truly empowering. For instance, we got a history narrative, and then we have a science narrative. We have a political narrative. Now, with these narratives, whether history, science, or political, a lot of y'all replace the concept with Jesus with one of those aforementioned narratives. So like some people think just not being Christian or Muslim or Jewish or Israelite, they be thinking that automatically qualifies you for being conscious. Oh, I ain't Christian. I ain't doing that church stuff. I'm free. But a lot of times you replace some of those concepts that you now disdain and you replaced it with other things. So a lot of people clown the Christians about believing in Jesus and Jesus will set you free, or Jesus will put all things in order in your life. And a lot of people thought that was nonsensical, not realizing that you've done the same thing with history. Oh, just know your history is going to make everything good. You're going to be free. Do your research. Do your research, and you're going to be free. Science. Know the science, and then you'll be free from the pseudoisms of that history and that spiritual stuff. Yeah, the history, the religion was pseudo, but that spirituality stuff is pseudo too. So everybody needs to study science and be free from all the shenanigans. And the truth of the matter is, the more information some of you all got, the more stressful your lives became. Some say ignorance is bliss. For some people, it's safer for them to just stay asleep. Some people are not up for the responsibility that comes with divinity. So waking up and becoming who you are became stressful, especially people that don't believe in deities outside. Oh, it's all me and everything is y'all know that talk. So, but that's a very hard charge. So for some, it was easier to believe that it was an invisible devil responsible for all that wasn't right in your life. For some people, it was easier to believe that the white folks had that type of control over you and they was the ones holding you back. But now to realize that I'm the source of the good and bad in my life, and then you look at your life and you're like, yo, I really don't like what I'm seeing. And that's thrown a lot of people into mental health issues and now needing therapy because they haven't found a way to process taking responsibility or accountability, because you're not off the hook just because you didn't know any better. Karma is karma. Mm-hmm. Consequence is consequence. So for certain people, all the science, all the research, all the history made things actually a lot worse. And I'm not saying you should go back to sleep. We're just talking about what's on the table or what we're facing and how important it is that we have to control our narratives. Mm-hmm. So I'm just giving a critique of the narratives that's been dominating our lives for the past 30, 40 years. For instance, one part of the narrative that is that you are great. That's correct, right? Mm-hmm. We're great. The next part of the narrative is you come from great ancestry. Mm-hmm. That's correct. I'm sure everybody would agree. Third level of it is you can be great again. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with any of that, but here's the caveat that just undermines all of that. coming up out of the Judeo-Christian traditions, you don't believe in the devil no more. And some people don't even, so some people projected the white man as the devil. So if you don't believe in the devil from the Bible, then you can't say the white man is the devil, because that concept comes from the Judeo-Christian thing. So the white man ain't the devil, but you still made him the devil. We done gave the so-called European superhuman powers to go back into history to change our consciousness and super project themselves into the future to control us. What am I talking about? So here we are in 2023. We're saying we're Kemites, Afro-Kemetic Cushites. And now, if you listen to the dialogue that's going on in the conscious community, everybody's still telling each other who they're not, and that the white folks lied, and that you got to do your history. Everybody's coming up out of nowhere with all these new history books telling us that you ain't Kemetic, you Moors. And they come up with a plethora of information. Like, man, where was these books at when I was studying? And so the white folks still wrote all that stuff, as much as we talk bad about the white folks. So the white folks wrote the history and wrote the real history and hid it, and now it's coming. And then it's like, oh, you're not Moorish, you're Indian. You're not black, you're Indian. You're not this, you're not that. So we gave the white man the power to change the history in the past. And now here we are in 2023. Now, you know about the AI. So now we on some Terminator stuff. So now everybody talking about the year 2030 and how they got it all worked out. So all this stuff about we're powerful people and our ancestors are powerful and we could be powerful again. Yet you have this other narrative is saying that they got us all figured out. And far as we could see in our future, they always going to have their foot on our neck, and that our greatness and how we define ourselves is always going to be contingent on white folks' foot on our neck. So your Africanness is always just a reaction to so-called white supremacy, not just for the sake of being a beautiful, powerful African in a sense. So that's part of the narrative that we've been teaching, and it doesn't help. So I would have to say, how much history do you need to know in order to act upon something? How much science do you need to know in order to act upon something? How many conspiracy theories and so-called research do you need to know to actually do anything with the information? Some people, kind of like the Israelites and the religious people, some of those conversations transported itself into the conscious community. So conversations like, we can't move one jot or one tittle till all Black Americans learn all the history in the world. Who got time for that? So I got to learn everybody's history. We already agreed that it all comes from us. So why we keep being petty with petty details, just keep, y'all know what I'm saying. So people think it won't move one jot or tittle till we learn all history. It won't move one jot or tittle till we start being more scientific. I think I heard one content creator pretty much said everything that we're doing is not relevant. Not us per se as the Temple of Anu, but all the stuff the conscious community deem as important said is not important if you're not into STEM. I mean, science, technology, engineering, and math. And she was correct to a degree. It's pretty much saying we're going to fall behind if our people aren't prioritizing STEM. And I would say, it still all comes back down to consciousness and spirituality, because the fact is our people have always been in the STEM. When y'all seen them posters with the black facts, it's a black man that created the internet, the black man that created the cell phone, that's all STEM. So Black folks has always been in the STEM, but the consciousness of those Black folks that's in STEM don't do it for their people. They be on some humanitarian stuff. So it never benefits us solely, or us primarily as Black folks or melanated folks first. Everything is always going to the greater good. So there was never an issue with the interest in STEM. It's still going to go back to your consciousness. Mm-hmm. So we're holding it down on the conscious front. No, you have to stay connected to the source. So your culture and everything about your conversation is supposed to be about how connected you are. And your greatness is going to come from an outpouring of your connectedness. So once again, people are teaching that we're not moving because we don't know everything. You're never going to know anything. The more you know, the more you know that you don't know. So I would have to ask, so the Ifa culture, what part of Africa is it?
West Africa.
West Africa. So do you think the Ifa people know the Zulu people history from South Africa?
No.
So do you think the Zulu people know the history of the people from Ghana?
No.
And remember, like Ghana got like 7 different ethnicities that make up what we perceive to be a Ghanaian.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just it's just a whole lot. I think it's just the African American or the Black American that's created this mythology that we got to learn all of that before we can progress forward. So at this point, it's one thing to study history, but I feel like, or I feel as well as I think we're at the crossroads where we have to start doing historical things.
True.
When our ancestors did stuff, they did it for the sake of doing it. They'd be like, yo, I'm gonna do something hot, and it's gonna help some people, and it's gonna be hot, and my name is gonna ring out forever. And that's why we talking about Kemmunion pyramids and stuff. They didn't do it for white supremacy. They didn't do it as a reaction to no other people. They were just like, no, I'm gonna figure some stuff out, and my name is gonna ring out. We're caught up in this loop that everything we do is always got to stay some reaction to so-called white supremacy. Oh, I'm Kemetic because I don't do the Bible. You're like, okay, so what does it mean to be Kemetic? And then you find out people are lacking in that conversation about why they think they're Kemetic or what makes you African. What's so great about being African? Because people are not demonstrating. So they're doing it as they're thinking they're being revolutionary by labeling themselves something just to make a statement that they're not that other thing.
Right.
But there's always qualifiers for those things. So we got to start doing historical things and just doing great stuff for the sake of doing great stuff that's going to benefit our people primarily as well as the planet. So we become master orators. We become master articulators at what makes us feel bad. I'm going to repeat that. We become master orators about conversations that make us feel bad, things that make us feel angry, things that make us feel stuck. And if y'all all remember, I did a communion about the emotional scale, that emotions are not negative. There's really no bad emotion. It's just a state. It's just a frame. And you don't stay in any of those frames anywhere. For instance, anger is better than grief. Irritability is better than complacency. Anxiety is better than despondency. You see what I'm saying? So there's scales that you can have with the emotions that you go through. Now, this thing called anger. Anger is I think when I posed the question to the crowd before, everyone agreed that anger is to move stuck energy. So anger is fiery. So if anger moves stuck energy, why are we still angry but yet still stuck? What's that that most popular definition of depression? What do they say depression is?
Rage turned inward.
Anger / rage turned inward is depression. So if we're having these conversations about what makes us angry, what makes us upset, and it's not moving things, what does that mean? That means that anger is not the required emotion for that shift, that change, or that transformation. I'm dropping the mic. We done, man. It's over. So it means that emotion is not the required emotion to cause the shift, change, and transformation. So we have to start having different conversations. It's just logical. We have to have a different quality of conversation. Our conversations need to be more aspirational. And that's where the disconnect comes from in the conscious community. Since the inception of the conscious community over in the States, they've supplanted feel good conversation with struggle consciousness. Somewhere down the line, they decided feel good conversation is the terrain or the domain of religious nuts, and it doesn't support our forward movement, and that struggle consciousness is the appropriate frame for a conscious person. They even fooled us into trying to feel good about struggle consciousness. They'd be like, oh, you lost your job because you told them crackers the truth, right? That the black man is God, right? Hey, that's the path. And you'd be like, okay, did that work out for you? Oh, your family don't let you come around because you spoiled Thanksgiving because you let them, so remember, so the root to being African is family. So you're considered rich by how much family and associates you got. So if you're ostracized at work, ostracized by your family, all for the sake of struggle consciousness, then you hustling backwards at that point. So I'm gonna lay some game on you. The charge of a spiritualist, the charge of an initiate, is to stand on principle and hold frame until the unseen becomes seen. I'm gonna repeat that. The charge of an initiate / spiritualist is to stand on your principle and hold frame till the unseen becomes seen. And that's powerful. You have your Hosea?
It's right here.
Okay. One of my favorite books called The Book of Knowing the Creations of Ra and Overcoming Apep. And it's a book pretty much about meditation, how the creator created existence through meditation. Y'all heard when I came into existence, existence itself came into existence. Many of the beings, many of the Neteru, the divine forces, came forth from my mouth through utterance. So the creator meditated and manifested his vision through speaking through Hekau. And if you know anything about Metal Neter, that whole thing, that whole paragraph is a double and triple entendre of the word Keper. So Keper is to come into being. Keper is to make happen. Keper is to exist. He said, when I came into existence, existence itself came into existence. So he had bars. Ptah Ra had bars and stuff like that. That was a triple entendre, and he just kept going with it. So if you would read it in Metal Neter, it'd be Keper, Keper, Keper. You know, it'll have a certain flow to it. That's invocation. So he brought forth something from the, remember I said, you got a whole frame till the unseen becomes the seen. So you're just not just waiting for something magical to happen. You've created it already on another dimension. Everything, every apparatus we have started off as somebody's idea, and they found a way to make the unseen seen. That's supposed to be our everyday spiritual reality. So let's see where I'm going with it. For some people, those that's more scientifically oriented sometimes think that sounds spooky. They be like, Nasud is leading us back into bondage, back into the Bible. That's ain't that faith? Ain't that faith? That's the Christian stuff. Like one prominent leader, he's no longer on this dimension. He had accused us, not us as Temple of Anu, but us as Kemites. He said we're nothing but Christians with 2,000-year-old clothes on. I was like, okay, that's a bar, you know. I ain't get mad. I was just like, okay, that's where he's at. That's where he was at with it. Because people are uncomfortable with that faith thing. We think it's misled a lot of our people. If anything, it's just the misapplication of a divine principle. So let's go with it. So what if I say we replace the word faith with allowance? Replace the word faith. Can you give me a example of how people use faith, the term faith, in a religious sense?
Like place your faith in the Creator.
Place your faith in the Creator. So people that thinks they're in their right mind and that they're so smart and free, so that sounds spooky to them. You don't place your faith into nothing. But remember, change that to allow. So allow the Creator to work for you. That changes the dimension of it, because we see the word faith and we think of stupid, ignorant Christians, so we divorce ourselves from it. And when we divorce ourselves from it, we leave our blessings on layaway. So check it out. So we have the concept called Ma'at, and we teach about the 7 cardinal principles of Ma'at: truth, justice, righteousness, harmony, order, balance, and reciprocity. So what is reciprocity? Reciprocity is I give and then I receive. There's exchange. There's been a disconnect with conscious people about exchange. We become pathological givers, and now we don't know how to receive. So that's our fault. That ain't the Christian's fault. That ain't nobody else's fault. That's our fault. When I listen to a Christian, they be like, I prayed and I gave it to the Lord. And y'all be like, yo, you crazy. Like, how's it? They don't worry on what's the details on how the Lord responds. They just be like, I prayed about it and I let it go. That's scary to people that deify information, deify research. They don't know how to allow. So if I had this, if this was an offering plate, and then on my right hand side I got a stack of $100 bill. Matter of fact, man, put your hand out like that. Your left hand.
This is my left hand.
I mean your right hand. Your other left hand. So here it is. I'm putting a stack of 100, and you just say Dua.
Dua.
So she's the goddess. So I'm doing the offering.
Dua.
Doing the offering, and with the offering, I'm telling the goddess that, like, yo, one day I'm gonna need a return on my investment because stuff is going on in my life. So praise the goddess, praise the God, doing that today. I'm gonna need 2,500 for. You supposed to keep saying Dua.
Oh, Dua.
I'm gonna need 2,500 because my car broke down. So now my money is getting low over here, but I'm still giving. I'm still asking, and I'm wondering why the goddess ain't giving me nothing because I'm still giving. Now I'm out of money. Now I'm looking at cakes and cookies and crystals, and you know, I can't give no more. Now everybody looking like, yo, your God is not answering you. Is the God or the goddess not answering? Is the God or goddess not answering, or we just don't know how to receive? So there has to be a part. You have to open yourself up and allow the deities, the Orishas, the Neteru, your ancestors to reciprocate. That's a lesson that we can learn from our Christian cousins and stuff. They've mastered that art of allowing things to happen for them. They're not always successful, but whether one is successful or not, that comes down to the individual, not in the science of that exchange. You understand? Because it takes a certain level of self-awareness or consciousness, because you could ask and you think you're prepared to receive, but certain things somebody could say, or your child, or certain events in your life could get you to, it could supplant another seed in there to make you doubt what it was that you thought you released yourself for. That's the discrepancy, because it's a science in its own right on how that happens. So there needs to be a cross-pollination of lessons that we can learn from our Christian brothers and sisters. So remember, I said they pray and they give it up to God and let God give it back in the way it deemed fit. It might not be today or tomorrow. It might come somewhere down the line. You're like, oh, God is great. Jesus is great. So now understand. So what happens is we've got confused. We be like, oh, they got they don't got no information. Their information is wrong. Their information is incorrect. But yet it's the Christians in them that's getting the buildings, the lands, and the acquisitions. We ain't even talk about the Europeans. We talking about the black. The black church is still way more influential and got more acquisitions than the conscious community. So I would say, even though their information is incorrect or half incorrect, their energy was right. Remember, as spiritualists, it's always about the energy. The energy, so you can have the wrong information and the right energy and still be magical. There's power in that. So everybody's trying to have all these conversations about who right and who wrong, but your energy is all jacked up, so it don't matter anyway. So now here we are on the conscious side. We got all the right information, but the energy is just totally jacked up. So there's no land, no properties, no acquisition. So we got to learn to get our energy right. So that reminds me of the text, the still from Tahuti Nefer, where it say, eat pure foods with pure thoughts, with pure hands, and associate yourself with prophets, sages, priests, and give offerings to the Neteru. It's after 2 o'clock. You think we should do a part 2? Yeah, they ain't even responding anyway. Like, I'm just talking to myself. So should we continue?
You're not talking to yourself.
Let me know y'all live out there.
I was gonna say, if you want to do a part 2, you can close out this thought and then pick up again in 2 weeks.
I gave you them instructions, so I'm just let me know y'all out there y'all paying attention.
Water is here.
Okay.
Yes. Kisa, say she with you.
All right, let's go. So I'll repeat it. The steel of Tahuti Nefer says, eat pure foods with pure thoughts, with pure hands. Associate yourselves with prophets, sages, priests, the clergy, and give offering to the Neteru, the divine cycles. Dua everybody for responding. I appreciate that. Got Baba Haru in the house. Okay.
I'll give my eye, Baba.
Eat pure foods, pure thoughts with pure hands. Associate yourselves with pretty much righteous folks
Yes.
and give offerings to the net to the rule. So what is that telling us? So we already understand the importance of eating proper food. Foods is good, especially like fruits and vegetables. They're hydrating. They keep energy clear, high in fiber, keep your system clear. That's a no-brainer. Most Afro-Kemetic people are already kind of up on the natural health thing, so that's a no-brainer. Okay, eating pure foods. Okay, got it. Pure thoughts. Pure thoughts is the result of meditation. Meditation is a daily cleansing and upkeeping of your thought process. So this quote, there's a lot in it. It's very rich. So pure thoughts. So that means you got to keep seeding and redefining your reality every day through meditation. When they say pure thoughts, we're talking about what? Standing on your principle, holding your frame till the unseen becomes seen. That's purity. Y'all understand? It ain't about just doing good things for people and just thinking lofty thoughts. It's about holding your frame about your divine identity. That means everything. Your divine identity and you holding frame to your divine identity, that is the source of your power, not money, not technology, not any of that. So if you hold your frame to your divinity, you're going to bring power to the money, the technology, the science, and the math. But those things in and of themselves are empty. Pure thought with pure hands. Of course, we're talking about hygiene, but we're also talking about ritual purity. Because they say cleanliness is next to divineliness. Some people say godliness. So cleanliness. So now we're talking about not just physical cleanliness, but your energetic state has to be clear. So what we're talking about is clearing your energy for the greater capacity for allowance. Y'all got that? Keep it through diet, ritual purity, and meditation, keeping your energies clear for the greater allowance, the greater capacity of allowance, which people are called faith. Remember, we're replacing the word faith with allowance. So it's pretty much, this is telling you how to get out your own way. And it says associate yourself with prophets, saints, priests, and stuff, meaning people are having conversation like this. I'm talking about no conspiracy theory, like, yo, I don't care about none of that. I'm creating my reality. We're creating our reality. Okay, I know that they're doing some things, but all we need to be talking about is what we're doing and what we're trying to do. Why do we keep breaking from our frame, becoming overly concerned with what somebody else is doing? So when we stay in our frame, everybody gets scared and talk about, oh, it's religious. And y'all have to mind your own split energy because you're scared to be seen as religious. You're like, yo, I'm holding frame to my divinity. That ain't no religious. Matter of fact, it is religious if religions mean to connect back. So why are y'all scared to stay connected? So a lot of y'all are fighting to be regular because the responsibility of holding frame is too big for some of y'all. So some of y'all are, you're like, oh, you think the temple stuff is some stuff you do over there. You're like, no, every teaching that you get here, you're supposed to be applying in your everyday life. So imagine the possible shift, change, and transformation that could happen if you held frame and stop being distracted by other people's conversation. Forget about the news. What's the news going on with us in our conversation? So that's why it's saying associate yourself with prophets, sages, priests, or the clergy. Then it says give offerings to the Netru. It's saying stay reminded of that exchange of energy. So you giving energy. Now let yourself receive. What if I were to tell you that we already gave a lifetime's worth of offerings, us as the Temple of Anu? For at least the past 10 years, we've been doing Wet Rempet, right? How many deities do we honor at Wet Rempet?
5.
5.
At minimum, I was
At
gonna
minimum.
say.
So what is it that we do? We get all these beautiful people to come together. We dance, we drum, and we give offerings. If y'all see the 5 altars, they're it's piled up offerings, money, cakes, crystals, all types of stuff that you can imagine. So remember, this isn't just a one-way thing. The priests then do readings to see if the offerings are accepted. Y'all see where I'm going? Every year, remember, we don't proceed till it's accepted. So for 10 years, you've been giving offerings that's been accepted. But remember that metaphor I gave with Hemet as the goddess, and you just keep giving, keep giving, keep giving, and not allowing space for the Neteru and the Risha to and the ancestors to reciprocate. And that's our lesson. The clear space. Stay connected with your divinity, and all you got to do is keep your space clear. I'm going to talk about mental, physical, and spiritual. Keep your space clear and hold frame with proper associations with people that's going to reinforce our reality. How does that play out? You don't need to know the details on how it plays out. You're already familiar with the conversation that's going on in the world. Oh, they're going to do this. The money's going to do that, da, 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 da. All we got to do is hold frame. And then next thing you know, next year, you'll be like, yo, whatever happened to that such and such that they said was going to happen? I thought they was going to have us in shackles. And you'll be like, I don't know what happened. It just didn't happen because we held frame. But if you disconnect from your frame and you keep talking about that stuff, you're the ones that's making it happen. It becomes self-fulfilling prophecy. I hope y'all understand the metaphysics that's being relayed in that conversation. It's not philosophy. That is the culture holding the frame. So where we went wrong as initiates is we've been in violation in a sense by openly speaking our sacred sciences that was supposed to only be revealed under certain circumstances. I don't know how old some of you are, but there was a time, I will say this probably, I'll say before the internet went to the advent of the internet was probably approximately like 20 years, at least the social media the way social it is media, now. Yeah. 20 years. Before that, it used to mean something when somebody told you that they was an initiate in Ifa or the Kemetic tradition. People was like, oh, where are you in it? They be like, they looked at you like you was the real deal because there were always solitary practitioners or researchers out. So when they seen somebody with their white and their lekis, they understood that person submitted to a process. They've actually been reborn. That's what initiation means. It means to be reborn. So you did supposedly done a total rehaul on how you think and how you dress and how you act. And that was seen as something respectable. Wow, you look beautiful in your white. They got their lekis and we carrying our ankhs and our African-centered garbs and stuff like that. Now, the uninitiated heckle and provoke the initiated to try to share information that we all know in our heart of hearts that they don't have the maturity, the wisdom, or the experience to put in proper context. Get like hot second. Am I right or am I wrong? So we put ourselves in position to discuss things that people don't have the maturity, the wisdom, or the experience to put in proper context. So therefore it gives birth to more arguments, more debates, more confusion. Here's some game. The reality of our ancestors, the Orishas and the divinities were never meant to be proven. Mm-hmm. The reality of our ancestors, the Orisha, and the Neteru were never meant to be proven. Why? Because remember, we live in this Western hemisphere, everybody, all this talking. So the spiritualities don't happen with all this talking. The Neteru, our ancestors, the Orisha, were meant to be experiential. Mm-hmm. We're not no corner parlor magicians here to cure nobody's curiosity about the nature of the intangible. So they okey-doked us off a lot of the secrets that we talk about, all for them to be too goofy to understand and want to just keep arguing over tit for tat. Was interested in many systems. They got the answer to that is iboga, mushrooms, ayahuasca, and a bunch of other things for people like that so-called scientific mind. Doesn't mean everybody's supposed to do that. It means the people that can't get out their way. Those are the ones that's supposed to do that, where it shuts your rational mind off, changes the chemistry in your body, and it catapults you into an authentic spiritual experience that's unquestionable, then you come back, and then the spirits, the ancestors of you, now you see, right? And you see what we talk about. Now you out here looking goofy trying to explain to people with the reality of the mushroom deity, and so now you're looking crazy. Now you understand the dilemma. Like if you're not gonna cross the roads into authentic spirituality, the people that's identified themselves with this world are never gonna understand you. So it's not for them, and it's okay. There's a place for everybody in this world, their path or their trajectory. They might have to go through some things to cycle back around, but we don't have to proselytize like the Christians. I made peace that the Kemetic tradition, the way we practice it, is never going to be big like the UNIA. It's never going to be big like the Nation of Islam. It's intimate. Spirituality in its essence is intimacy in its own right. So what we do here, we're a meeting place of Kemites. That's what we talk about, the communion. So it's us, the Temple of Anu, clearly the Shrine of Ma'at, our elder Baba Hiru. Then we have the solitary practitioners. So what we're doing here, I'm just reaffirming our mission statement for what it is that we do for the communion. We're here to discuss and encourage each other about the finer points of what it means to stand on your principle and hold your frame to the unseen becomes seen. I repeat, what we're doing here, the conversation that we're having here is about discussing and encouraging the finer points on how to stand on our principle and hold frame to the unseen becomes seen. So we're done with the motivational talk. You're like, what's he talking about? You ain't gonna motivate people? You have a car, then you build the motor and you put the motor in the car and the car moves. So motivation usually comes from an outer source. We're not motivational speakers here, so we're not doing that. If you come across the Kemetic legacy, you're supposed to be inspired. The operative word is in. You're supposed to be coming from a place of inspiration and not put the responsibility of somebody else to motivate you on why you're supposed to keep doing what you're doing every day. So if you're not self-motivated, the Kemetic legacy isn't for you. And once again, that's okay. You might have to go through some other things before you cycle back around to the Kemetic tradition. So all I'm saying is, like, we're not going for the okey doke, and when people sitting around crossing their arms looking at us like they not impressed, like they need to see more, like we need to do more. Like, no, we've done enough, and what we do very well. So y'all don't got to do anything. Y'all can do what y'all want. Of course, y'all always invited, but we're not gonna go out our way to go through all this stuff to make the Kemetic legacy seem like it's more appealing to you, because that would be motivational. You got to be inspirational. You have to be aspirational to be a part of this tradition. So yeah, you could do what you want, continue your science, your research, your solitary practice. But when you come amongst us as the Temple of Anu, and as far as initiated system, there's a code, there's a protocol, and then you get with us, you're gonna do it the right way. And if you don't like it, you can do it your own way. And that's no disrespect, because if you're not ready, everybody's not ready for that level of practice. Everyone's not ready for that level of participation. That's why we got 200 people that we don't know their names, anything, and they clearly listening. So I would suggest those people learn to become angel investors. Some people are, we don't even know some of the people out here. And they be like, oh, Temple of Anu, that's my people, that's my family. And we like, oh, who are these people? Like, so some people are aligning themselves with us, but we never met them. They never came to no event. And that's fine. So my thing is, it goes back to reciprocation. Let divinity work through you. So if you ain't going to come when we have an event, you be like, that's my people. I ain't ready for it, but I want them to win. I'm sending a $25 thing anyway, even though I can't make it, or even though I'm not interested in coming. Whatever they need to keep their forward progress, that's what I'm doing. That's how we got to move as a people. It's the onus is not just always on the people that's doing it in live time, because a lot of other people are taking energy and they mess up the whole relationship with how this thing works. So if you're taking, and you see us trying to do this important move, respect and give energy in the form of currency, because everything don't work on just divine love. This thing called money is a form of energy that certain parts of the machine only work on that. It ain't gonna work from fasting. I can't give somebody the green juice and give us the mortgage on the building. Like, that's gonna take a certain other type of green. Anyway, so That's the message for today. Until next time.
Dua Netta, I appreciate that message. There's a lot of stuff to reflect on in there and stuff
Yeah,
to
that
come
good
back
chat
to.
is solid.
I know.
But that's good. That means they're listening, or I think they're
Yeah,
listening.
it's what you said before about being inspired is important because it's a reminder that these messages is meant to do something to us internally. So we're gonna take all of that and we're gonna have to marinate on it
Mm-hmm.
and sit with it and meditate with it over the next 2 weeks. Dua Natter. We appreciate those of you who joined us today, and we appreciate the reciprocity that you show us in the form of your donations. You can make donations to us via Cash App, $ Temple of Anu, or by PayPal to templeofanu@gmail.com. Your donations at this time are going to help us to further the work that we do in the community and allow us to continue to build um, and hold space for those of us who are ready to do the work and hold space for people who are not ready today but will be soon, and to continue to exist as a spiritual community and a spiritual safe haven so that we are available to people when the time comes for them to be with us. So we appreciate your reciprocity. We appreciate your donations. We appreciate your energy and your time. We send out a happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers on the line, to our nutters, and we want to. I hope you all are being celebrated, and if you're not being celebrated by the people in your life, celebrate yourself.
That's right.
Okay,
That's right.
to our nutter. I hope y'all feel the love. I hope all the mothers on the line feel the love that we send to you all, in gratitude for your energy and your work. And we'll see you all in 2 weeks back here again on Facebook and YouTube Live, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern for our next regularly scheduled communion. Until then, Shemi and Matej.
Give me my time.